Paul of Tarsus was born early in the 1st century AD and was executed in Rome under the Emperor Nero in 67 AD. Early in his life, Paul was known by his Jewish name, Saul.
The first time that Paul of Tarsus appears in biblical records is in the Acts of the Apostles, where he was a witness to the stoning of Stephen, who was the first martyr in the Catholic Church. I'll try not to... Yeah.
According to the Acts of the Apostles, Paul was relentless in his persecution of Christians, but at the time sincerely thought that he was doing God's will. After his conversion, the memories of these persecutions would haunt Paul.
Die, Christians, die!
Paul of Tarsus was an educated Pharisee who spent many years living in Jerusalem.
Okay.
One day, while he was traveling to Damascus from Jerusalem, while carrying arrest warrants for people who were following Christianity, a very bright light suddenly surrounded him, and a voice asked him, "Saul, Saul, why do you continue to persecute me?" To this, Paul responded,
Who are you, Lord?
The voice identified himself as Jesus of Nazareth and instructed Paul to continue his journey to Damascus, where he would receive further instructions. After this encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus, Paul could not see for 3 days. Once Saul arrived in Damascus, he fasted and prayed for 3 whole days. Finally, God sent a messenger, Ananias, to speak to Paul. Ananias restored Paul's sight and instructed him to be baptized and to wash away his sins and declare Jesus of Nazareth as the Son of God. After his vision on the road to Damascus and his conversion with Ananias, Paul began to preach that Jesus was the Son of God among his fellow Jews.
Fellow Jews, Jesus is the Son of God.
After his baptism, which was performed by Ananias, Paul became one of the most influential men in the church's history. Paul worked as a missionary and was responsible for the conversion of many of the first Christians in the ancient world. Paul also wrote a lot about the Christian faith, and his writings make up a large part of the New Testament. Even today, Paul's epistles are still foundational writings for the church. In 49 AD, the Council of Jerusalem convened. Paul was a key member of the Council of Jerusalem, which established that Gentiles would be allowed to convert to Christianity. Through Paul's leadership and influence, many communities dominated by Gentile groups began to form. These groups still followed the Judaic moral code, but did not adhere to certain things like the dietary teachings of the Jewish laws. Paul's quick abandonment of these Jewish laws is still debated today. Life as a Christian missionary was very unpopular in the 1st century world of the Roman Empire. Paul's missionary journeys often got him in trouble with the Roman authorities and led to his eventual imprisonment. Paul was first imprisoned in Caesarea for 2 years and was then sent to Rome to stand trial for his crimes. Paul was eventually freed for a time and continued to preach throughout the known world. On his 5th and final visit to Jerusalem in 57 AD, Paul was taken into Roman custody and was accused of breaking the Roman laws once again. Paul was imprisoned for the 2nd time in the city of Caesarea Maritima for 2 years, until, in 59 AD, a new governor reopened his case. At this time, Paul exercised his right as a Roman citizen to appeal his case to Caesar. The Acts of the Apostles says that on his way to Rome to meet Caesar, Paul was shipwrecked on the island of Malta. In 60 AD, Paul finally arrived in Rome. Once he arrived in Rome, he spent 2 more years under imprisonment. During his time in jail, Paul was a very active writer who spent days writing letters that answered questions and established precedents for the church. After breaking the Roman laws for years, Paul was eventually beheaded by the Roman Emperor Nero in 67 AD.